Hi, I'm Vivian French and I'm going to read you a story about worms. And worms are really, really important. They're a gardener's very best friend. And this is the story about how I and my grandson Jack found out about them. And the story is called Yucky Worms. And I wrote the words, and the pictures are by Jessica Ahlberg. And Jessica had fun. As you can see at the very beginning, the Endpapers, she's got lots and lots and lots of worms going up and down and up and down. And you probably can't see, but it says, "What's long and pink?" and goes up and down. And this one says, "You all keeping up at the back?" And the little one down here says, "I'm beginning to feel sick." So this is the story of Yucky Worms. One day, when I was in Gran's garden, Gran dug up a slimy, slithery, wiggly worm. "Yuck," I said. "Throw it away." "Throw it away?" Gran looked horrified. "Would you throw away one of your friends?" "You can't be friends with a worm," I said. "You can't even tell which end is which." "Yes, you can. Watch." Gran put the worm down. It gave a kind of squirmy wriggle and disappeared, pointy end first. As the rounded end vanished, Gran said, "There goes its tail." I bent down to look, and I could see it had left a little tunnel. "Where's it gone?" I asked. "Home," Gran said. "It's an earthworm, and it lives in the earth." And there are lots of little bits of information here. In most gardens, there will be about 20 worms in every square metre of earth. And down here, there's a picture of a worm with all its various bits. A worm has 5 pairs of hearts, and the food goes in this end and it goes all the way down, and then it comes out at its bottom. "Does it eat earth too?" I wanted to know. "It eats tiny, tiny stones and bits of grit," Gran told me. "But worms eat other things as well, like rotting leaves and flowers and fruit and dead insects. They specially like eating at night when it's cool." And these little worms are saying, "Yum, mouldy." And this little one says, "Grit is good for you." And this worm, I don't know whether you can see, he's found a button and he's saying, "Yuck, can't eat this." The stones and grit help to grind everything up in the worm's stomach, and then the worm poos it back out. And they pull their food back down as they wriggle into the earth again when they've come up above ground to find things to eat. This little worm's saying, "Nice and rotten, just how I like it." And this little worm down here is going, zzz, he's having a sleep. Let's see what happens next. Gran pointed at the flower bed. "Look, can you see?" I bent down and I saw a weird, long, curly worm made of earth. There it is. "That's worm poo," Gran said. "It's called a cast. You know when you recycle things? Well, worms do it too. There's still a lot of goodness left in the things a worm eats, and when the goodness comes out again as poo, it helps plants to grow big and strong. And as the worms move about under and over the earth, the poo gets spread around the garden. That's why worms are my friends." Gran gave me a thumbs up. "It's not just their poo that's good for plants. The tunnels they dig loosen the soil, so roots can stretch out and air and rainwater can get in." And you can see all the worms, wiggly, wiggly tunnels. Worms' poo is so fine and crumbly, it never blocks their tunnels. In a square metre of earth, there will be about 4 metres of earthworm tunnels. This worm saying, wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Some people called worms underground farmers. Worms can wriggle backwards and forwards. This worm saying, oops, forgot something. Better reverse. But it's dangerous being a worm, Gran said. I stared at her. Dangerous? She smiled at me. Lots and lots of animals think worms make the best sort of dinner. This worm's got a fork very near it, and it's saying, that was close. And this is a mole. And the mole's shopping list says, worm, 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 worm. Birds love them, and so do moles, badgers, frogs, hedgehogs and foxes. Even some slugs eat worms, and human beings slice them with spades or spike them with forks. It's a tough life. Cutting them in half doesn't hurt them, Gran, I said. They just turn into 2 worms and go on growing. Gran shook her head. Poor worms. Lots of people think that, but it's not true. She put her fork down. Time for a snack. And there's a worm here saying, I think I'll hide down here because there's a big blackbird up here. This worm saying, there's a mole about. And this worm saying, bird alert. A worm's tail can regrow if it's cut off, but cutting a worm in half will kill it. Gran had tea and I had orange juice. Can I dig a worm up? I asked. If it rains, Gran said, worms will come up on their own. Worms breathe through their skins. They don't mind the earth around them being wet, but if their tunnels are flooded, they come up to the surface to breathe. I took a biscuit. What if it doesn't rain? And Gran winked at me. We'll use the watering can and pretend. I finished my biscuit as fast as I could. Can we trick the worms now? Gran went to fill the watering can, and I watered the earth. Then I stood back. I didn't want worms chewing at my shoes. They only put their heads out, Gran promised, and it'll be a while before they do. When it's very hot and the soil gets too dry to slither through, a worm will wriggle down to where the earth is still damp, curl up and wait for rain. When it's very cold, it will wriggle down even further beneath the frost level, and it'll curl up with other worms for warmth. Gran was right. I had time to eat 2 more biscuits before she said, look! Wow, I said. I could just see the tip of a worm above the earth. Now, watch this. Gran stamped, and the worm disappeared. Did it see you? I asked, and Gran shook her head. Worms don't have eyes. They feel vibrations, though, and a thump like that might mean hungry bird landing, danger. Gran dug her fork in the ground. Up came lots of earth and wriggly worms. She picked one up and washed it in the watering can. Mustn't drop it, she said. They can't swim. Gran put the clean worm on some paper and held it near my ear. I could hear a rustling noise. What's that? They're covered in little bristles, Gran said. The bristles and their muscles help them move. And there's a diagram down here which tells you about them moving. A worm has ridged muscles all the way along its body, and to move it pushes its front end forward and uses its bristles to hold that end in place while the back catches up. And the back end bristles stop the worm from sliding backwards, while the front end tunnels again into the earth, just like a slinky toy. That worm's saying, cheerio. I've got muscles too. I bent my arm so Gran could see. If you've got so many muscles, she said, maybe you'd like to help me plant my sunflower seedlings. Okay, I nodded. And then I thought of something. When I go to school on Monday, I'm going to say that I've got lots of new friends. Good idea, Gran said. Actually, I said, I might not actually say that they're worms. So that's the story of Yucky Worms. And there's lots more bits at the back. And if you like worms and study them, you can be a wormologist. And you have to look out for worm casts in your garden or in the park, leaves sticking out of the earth, and worms on the surface after rain. And you can experiment by watering a dry patch of grass or earth and watching to see if worms come up, tapping on the ground to see if you can make a worm believe that it's raining, and very carefully digging up a forkful of earth and seeing how many worms you find. But if you pick up a worm, remember to be respectful, because a worm's a living creature, and check how it feels. Is it smooth? Is it slimy? Can you feel the bristles? And watch how it moves. Is it a youngster or an adult? Adults have a yellow ring round their bodies. And put the worm back on newly dug earth and watch how it wriggles away. And remember, always wash your hands after touching worms. So that's the story of Yucky Worms, and it's illustrated by Jessica Ahlberg, and it's published by Walker Books. And I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much.